There's so many great things I can say about these Claws of Night. I don't even know where to begin. They are so strong that they even stopped 𝐼𝐼𝐼's second phase from happening. The blood loss buildup would occur almost instantly and the Lord of Frenzy Flame couldn't keep up. But let me not get ahead of myself. First things first, many players have been sleeping on these claws. That's because you, the community, including me, got so googly-eyed over the Sword of Night, and rightly so. That katana is beast. When I found out about that weapon, I made it my mission to get it ASAP. Everything else was just an afterthought, including the Claws of Night, because you can obtain these in the same quest line. And if you want to know how to do all that, then check the link in this video's description to find out. I made a full guide. But anyways, let me start out by saying that the Claws of Night are better than the Sword of Night, in my opinion. There's far more versatility in that the claws have a ranged skill, an Ash of War called Scattershot Throw, where you conjure multiple copies of the armament in both hands and throw them all at once. Follow up with an additional input to throw again, and with a 45 bleed buildup, this makes enemies hemorrhage fast. But that's not the only projectile for the claws. Its guard counter is a spinning attack that creates a small amount of distance while throwing another mini scattershot. Normally, guard counters instantly attack the enemy without worrying about the fact that they'll attack again and it can get you killed. With this, it has a small zone which gives you a tactical advantage if they happen to attack right after you perform a guard counter. And with the curved sword talisman, that counter increases by 20% when landed. And me personally, I'm not really a dual wielder. I had to get used to it because I normally like to use shields along with one weapon, a more balanced playstyle. I like to have some defense, but I quickly found out that dual wielding allows for even faster attacks, more damage, and makes things so much more relentless. So the dagger talisman is perfect to increase the critical damage that you deal. And one thing about the Ash of War, which I forgot to mention, is that it comes with the keen affinity baked into the scattershot throw. This means that it'll scale with your dexterity stat even higher. Obviously, this is a dexterity build, and as you can see, I have 70 as a stat. This is what the weapon scales in, and before I even upgraded the claws, the scaling began at a C, which is very good. So after maxing it out, it became a B, and with the keen affinity added to this, it's honestly probably higher than that. And one more thing about the scattershot throw, it has so much range, and it's easy to zone enemies and bosses alike, while quickly causing hemorrhage from the blood loss buildup. It also hits multiple targets at once. Man, I love this thing. Now, dexterity is very important, especially for this build. It allows me to evade roll at just the right times, and most importantly, it's the source of my weapon's base damage. Along with this, I have strength, simply because almost every new DLC weapon scales with that as well, so I might as well have it in my back pocket. My vigor is almost always around 60, especially with a build like this where I dual wield a lot. It lacks defense, so the survivability is needed. And the 45 endurance allows me to maintain a decent amount of stamina to consistently hack and slash, and adds on to the perspective of defense, because I enjoy using shields when I want them to help me out with that. And these two talismans increase my stamina even more when I'm attacking and blocking simultaneously. But when I'm in boss fights with this build, I like to begin the first phase dual wielding. It literally takes me a few seconds to get them to that other phase. Then once it begins, as they get increasingly more aggressive and difficult, I employ my shield, either the Eclipse Crest or Fingerprint, depending on the boss. Now the Eclipse Crest is awesome because it's a great shield and it allows me to utilize my skill or Ash of War while using the Great Shield. Usually shields have a skill and they won't allow you to utilize that Ash of War unless you put it away. This is very inconvenient in a fight. And when it comes to other bosses that require a lot more defense, I tend to lean on the Fingerprint Stone Shield and play more calculated. Here's an example. Like when I was fighting Ramina, I was using my Eclipse Crest with the claws. They allowed me to zone her with the scattershot throw, easily causing hemorrhage as I played tactful. Eventually, she went down, but it was so much of a difference in the 𝐦𝐸 boss fight. The first half of the fight, I dual wielded like I normally do to quickly force the second phase to come. But let me remind you, as I said at the beginning of this video, I stopped his second phase. He tried that rain down fire on me, but the scattershot said nope, and I proceeded to continue the onslaught. Either way, he still gets more aggressive even though there wasn't really a second phase, so I still pulled out my shield. This time it was the Fingerprint. Played calculated and ended the fight. But this just goes to show you how insanely powerful these claws are. It also helps that my Mimic tier is using the same build as I, so you can see the carnage. This goes without saying, that fighting almost all other enemies is a cakewalk. Of course, you'd want to use a slightly different talisman setup, but that's to your preference. I like the Health on Kill talisman and the new Crusade insignia that raises your attack power after defeating an enemy. But that's pretty much it for this build. I was never a huge fan of the dual wielding perspective in combat, but it is definitely very fun and powerful. Tell me down in the comments if you have used the Claws of Night. Also tell me how you're running them. I appreciate you watching to the end. I hope this helped you out, and if so, like the video and don't hesitate to subscribe if you're new here. I'll see you in the next one. Be right up.